So there's a lot within Illustrator, and I'm going to introduce some tools to get us started. But right now, I kind of want to show us what you're going to be using a lot, especially for this project. And when we're using the laser engraver, this is really helpful. So I'm going to show you how to copy and paste a picture in from the internet and how to transform that into a file that's usable with Illustrator and the laser cutter. So say I wanted to find a picture on the internet. So say I got pictures of some mountains here. So say I wanted to maybe engrave one of these pictures, for example. So I'll click this picture here. It's as simple as right clicking, hitting copy image, going back to Illustrator, and you can right click. You can't paste by right clicking, but you can go up to edit up here in the top left hand corner and hit paste. And that brings in the image. Now it's going to bring in a really large version of the image. So you're going to have to scale that down. Now, make sure you have that navigator window open. So on the left-hand side, you can see this little um, icon here that allows me to click and drag. I can zoom in. What I can do is I can click the corners here and drag those down. Now, when you scale something down, you want to keep everything proportionate. So by holding shift, it's going to keep everything proportionate. Otherwise, what could happen is I could distort the image. So make sure you're holding shift when you size something up or down. Okay. And I'll zoom in. So say for example, I just want to show you, maybe I want to put this maybe here, for example. Great. Now, if you zoom in, you can still, the image is still pixelated. So we need to turn this into a vector graphic, meaning it's going to make it so there's no pixelation. So basically I click the image, it's already selected. Up here, there's a button called Live Trace. And right next to that, there's a little arrow that I can click. If I click that arrow, all the way to the bottom where it says tracing options, click that. Now, what I like to do is click preview on the corner here or on the side here. This allows me to see whatever adjustments are made. Now, this will change the settings. And it's called live tracing. It'll take that image and translate it into a illustration. Now, the laser cutter works in black and white and grayscale, where you could do colored versions if you're doing like a graphic, but for this, we're only working with lasers, so it can't read these other colors. So I click grayscale or black and white. For this, we'll do grayscale. And you can see it changes the tone. Now, that's all that we can work with in grayscale. It's just as is. So if I like that, I would click trace and I can work with that. If I wanted to just do black and white, this gives us a little bit more room. I can click the threshold and I can adjust the contrast, right? The differences between light and darkness, depending on what I want. So you can mess with, there's a bunch of different settings in here. I can change it, the fills to strokes if I wanted to, and you can just see, depending on your drawing or your image, what you want to do. Now for this one specifically, I'd like to keep this at grayscale. I like how that looks. Hit trace, and now we have an image that has no pixelation. I could translate this easily to the laser cutter. Okay, now I want to show one more example. Maybe you wanted to do something a little bit different. So I hit delete. Let's find a different image. So let's type in, maybe I want to do BMW logo, just show. So say I have this image here. Let's find one that doesn't have the checkers behind it. There's been issues with that getting pasted in. So we'll take this guy here, copy, edit, paste. Again, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. It's way too big for this template. Hold shift, shrink it down. Now, this is helpful. Say I wanted to laser this, but I didn't want all this to be the same engraving. So I'm going to do the same process. I go to live trace, click that little arrow pointing down, tracing options, preview, and it changes it to black and white, which is fine. I can adjust the threshold. Maybe I now want to make it so I click stroke. So it's just going to make outline here. Okay. So that's kind of cool. Or I'm going to leave it as fills, depending on what you want to do. Now I hit trace. This is great, but this is still one unit. If I wanted to break these up into separate segments, what you can do is hit this button up here called expand, where my cursor is blinking. If I click expand, Now there's different points. If I click, you can see that each section of this drawing now is its own separate segment. So for example, I could double click. Maybe I want to double click to work in that space. Maybe I want to outline this line red. I can click, there's my color palette over here that allows me to outline in red. Maybe because I wanted to cut this out, for example, right? Maybe I want to engrave or change this color in here to blue. I could do that too, depending on what our design intent is. All right, I'm going to go over in the next video what these color palettes over here do. It's pretty easy to follow, but just for this example here, I want you to understand how to turn an image into a live trace, right? So again, I'll do one more VW logo, for example. Maybe I want to engrave this onto something, maybe make a keychain. I don't know, just an example. Again, scaling it down, holding shift, zooming in, see how it's pixelated. I'm going to go up here, click live trace, the arrow, tracing options, preview, and now I have a nice template to work with. I like how that looks. I'm not going to change any settings. I click trace. Great, this is still one entity. So what I do is hit expand up here, and that will break this into separate pieces. So to work with this, I have to double click. But for example, if I wanted to fill this all in, maybe I want to cut this outline out in red. I can change that color. It's hard to see, so that's a bad example. Let me change that. Double click. Maybe I want to make this whole inside here. Maybe I want to make that for graphic design purposes, not for the laser cutter. Turn that into a lighter gray. So it engraves that lighter than the inside. Again, depending on your design intent, you can change the colors. Maybe I want to cut out this section. I could change this to red. I will get into that more specifics next class or next demo.